Hi, everybody. Welcome to 7 Steps to MBA Acceptance in 2021. I'm Linda Abraham. I'm going to be presenting this masterclass. A little bit about me and my background. I've been an MBA admissions consultant since 1994, just almost right around 21 years. I've been quoted in Poets and Quants, the Wall Street Journal, U.S. News, Business Because, CBS News, Business Insider, and other media regarding MBA admissions. I'm the co-founder and first president of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. I have visited business schools on 4 different continents and met or interviewed MBA admissions directors at all the top MBA programs over the last quarter century. I'm looking forward to sharing my 27 years of admissions consulting experience with you this morning, or morning in Los Angeles, wherever it is where you are. Before we begin, I want to point out a few items that will help you maximize your time here and one that will help us improve these master classes. If you've not yet downloaded your webinar worksheet, take a second to do so. Again, my suggestion is that you print it out. I'm going to bug you a little bit more about this as we go on. And yes, the webinar will be recorded. Yes, great. We're posting a link to the webinar worksheet. If you haven't downloaded it yet, please download it. And again, if you can, print it out. We're going to use the question window for your questions and the chat window for your answers to my questions. So if you have questions at any point in time during the webinar, please feel free to post it in the question window. If I ask questions of you, please post your answers in the chat window. It just makes it much easier for me to go through the questions quickly during our Q&A at the end if they're all in one place. When you leave, you're going to receive a brief survey. Please fill it out. We value your feedback. I review it all. And again, I thank you in advance for it. Now, you can win a free consultation with me. We're going to have a contest towards the end of the webinar based solely on content presented during the webinar. So stay tuned. It's about the only way that you can get a one-on-one with me is by winning one of these contests. And a recent winner wrote me just a couple of months ago. I just wanted to let you know that I will be attending Michigan Ross this fall. In other words, he's there now. Honestly, you were hugely influential in my decision to attend business school this fall. I was considering applying this upcoming fall, but listening to your webinars and then speaking with you directly by winning a contest, I took your advice about using this as an opportunity to get into a great school and went for it. And now I am thrilled, capitalized, with where I'm heading. At this point, I'd like to test your hand-raising skill in Zoom. I'm sure you're all experts at it. Please raise your hand if you want to go to a top MBA program to enhance your career trajectory and earnings potential. Okay, well, most of you are experts at Zoom and are here for the right reasons, so that's great. Okay, wonderful. You can put your hands down. And I also would like to learn a little bit about you. So let's have our first poll. When do you intend to apply? The options are fall 2021, winter 2021-22, both round 1 and round 2 of next year, or later, round 3, or in a subsequent application cycle. And the last option is not sure. Okay, we're at 76% having voted. Can we get it up over 80%? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's close the poll with 82% having voted. 64% of you are aiming for round 1. 0% are aiming for round 2. 7% are aiming for both round 1 and round 2 of next year. 14% for sometimes later. So you're planning ahead. That's great. And not sure. Actually, you're all planning ahead. And I salute you for doing that. So another question in the chat window, please. Where are you logging in from? City and state if you're in the United States, city and country if you're outside the United States. In the chat window, please. And somebody already applied, okay. Bay Area, California, New York City, Cairo, Egypt. Welcome near and far. Accra, Ghana, India, Brazil, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Whoa, we really have a very international audience today. Toronto, Canada. We have somebody in California. Anybody in Los Angeles? That's where I'm located. All right, California is close enough. So we have North America, Asia, Africa, South America, Colorado Springs, the United States, Toronto. Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you. Now, some of you may be wondering what's with the table and worksheet. I'm going to be at different points in the webinar masterclass, mostly later on, I'm going to be providing suggestions for improving your qualifications and application throughout the webinar, but mostly in the second half of it. Every time I mention something that applies to you, please write it down on the table on page 3 of your worksheet. You can use page 1 and 2 to take notes, as I said, but page 3 is really going to be a launch pad of to-dos for you. After the masterclass, you can review these to-dos and decide when you want to work on them. Just basically keep track of them here. You can organize them later in a different fashion, obviously, or just use a table. You may decide to skip some. You may decide to postpone your application. Whatever it is, that's fine. But I think this table will provide a really useful way for you to proceed. I'm going to be, right. So what motivates me to provide this webinar? The webinar has basically grown from 3 seeds. My frustration with applicants who start the process late and shortchange their chances of acceptance. Let me get this out of the way. We love to start working with applicants now because our clients can improve their profile, qualifications, and chances of acceptance when they start early. And by the way, we are also raising our prices as of March 15th. So if you start now, you'll beat the price increase, but that's a separate issue. The amount of limiting and misleading imagery in MBA advising from admissions directors, sometimes students, sometimes consultants like myself. And that's the second seed. And the third seed is the paradox at the heart of MBA admissions, which we're going to get to at the very end of the masterclass. After 26 years in this business, I've seen a lot of metaphors used in describing the MBA admissions process. The first one is it's an accounting exercise. It's not a marketing exercise. Another one is it's all about personal branding. And the third one that's most common is it's all about marketing. While I believe metaphors and similes can be useful, I think they've been abused in MBA admissions. I think it's an accounting exercise, a marketing exercise, and yes, it does have, it reflects your personal brand. But mostly, I believe that these metaphors have obscured the process. Now, I don't promise an image-free presentation, especially using slides and screen sharing software. I do promise the next 40 minutes will provide you with a purpose-driven, goal-centered approach to the MBA application process, including what you should be doing now, 6 to 9 months before you submit your application for most of you, to maximize your chances of acceptance at top MBA programs when you apply round 1 and or round 2 of the 2021-2022 application season. And for those of you planning ahead, I think it was about 15% of you in the poll that we just did, you can still use these suggestions. You might have a longer timeline, but you can still use the suggestions. So let's cultivate these 3 seeds into a flourishing, healthy MBA application. Not bad for someone who just complained about abusive metaphors in the admissions process. Okay, the first seed, my annual frustration at people who come to us at the last minute. Yes, we can polish the essays during the week before the essays are due, and we're happy to do so. But we can do so much more if you start earlier. This webinar is all about using the next few months before the applications come out to improve your profile, your qualifications, and maximize your chances of acceptance. Now, let me ask you, and I'd like you to reply in the chat window, what should be the starting point of your MBA planning and application process? What do you think should be the starting point? Jeff says a timeline. It's part of it. I think so. But it's not really the starting point. Career vision, researching schools. Varun, I think you probably have hit on it. Career vision is pretty much it. It's where you want to be at the end of the process. Okay. Your reason for applying. Exactly, Vivabi. I'm sorry if I mispronounced somebody's name. That should be your starting point. Where do you want to end up after your MBA? In other words, begin with the end in mind. Clarify your post-MBA goal. That's step 1. And it's the foundation for your entire MBA application strategy, even if it changes while you're in business school. At least you've gone through this exercise. And it's something that many, I'd say most MBA programs look for. Now, what you see on the screen is an excerpt from an Admissions Straight Talk podcast episode with Sujin Kwan, who is the program director for full and admissions director at Ross School of Business. I asked her what makes an application really stand out for you. And she said, people who seem to really know what they want, and know themselves and who can articulate it well. They can connect the dots. So you want to define your post-MBA goal as business schools define it, and they define it as the function you want to perform and the industry and what you want to do it. Now, I want to emphasize to you that function is something you do. It's not something you study. So marketing might be a business function, but it's not what you're going to do. It is something you might study. You might do brand management. You might do product management. You might do advertising. You can do all kinds of different things under the heading of marketing, or that you'll need to study marketing for, but it's not really a job function. Some of you also have, and it's good if you do have, a long-term goal. What you see on the screen is your short-term goal. That would be 5 or 10 years down the road. It can be an aspiration or dream, perhaps a way of contributing to the betterment of society on a larger scale. It's a little bit less critical from an admissions perspective, but if you have something like this, don't hide it. Be prepared to discuss it. And also make sure that it flows logically from your short-term goal. Now, some of you are probably sitting there and thinking, especially if you didn't respond, that the goal is your starting point. What if my goal is so clear? What if I can't define it in terms of function and industry? How do you intend to clarify it? Any ideas? In the chat window, please. In the chat window, please. Reason for applying. Research industries you're interested in. Very good, Travis. Build on previous experience. Okay. I like Travis's response. Research industries you're interested in. Trial and error. That can be really expensive and time consuming. Introspect and network. Good. Bobby, you're on a roll today. Okay. I would recommend, first of all, online research, but then I also recommend that you go beyond that and you do informational interviews. Talk to people, make appointments, talk to people in positions that you find attractive. Look at first of all, look at what you'd like and are good at, and then talk to people in positions that you find attractive. Ask them, what do they actually do? What education do they believe was useful to them? Do they wish they would have had before they started? What are they missing? From what programs do they want to hire people for the positions you find appealing, or do their companies hire people for the positions you find appealing? Then take time to think about what you want to do based on the information you've gleaned, both online and off. Reflect. I think somebody else said that. Introspect, and that was Bobby, right? Okay. Again, he's on a roll. Reflect upon it. Once you have a clearly defined goal, it will be a substantive and meaningful guide in the process of choosing schools. It becomes your North Star. Also realize, and I pointed this out a minute ago, at many schools, a clearly defined, realistic post-MBA goal is as much a requirement of admissions as a competitive GPA or quality work experience. For example, I already showed you Sujin Kwan's quote. Chicago Booth explicitly says that it seeks a sense of personal direction, I'm quoting, quote, and realistic expectations for the MBA, close quote. And then there are many others that say similar things, I think INSEAD, on their websites. They want to know that they can help you succeed. In order to know that they can help you succeed, they need to know how you define success. What is your purpose for the MBA? So that's step one, clarify your goal. But what about your qualifications? I'm sure some of you are thinking about that. That step one is about what you want. Step two is about what you bring to the table. Evidence of your potential for success in their program and beyond. In the chat window, what elements make up your qualifications? Anybody want to say? Hey, Bobby, where are you when I need you? Work experience, professional experience, good. Education, work experience, community service, excellent. References, that's your letters of recommendation. It's not quite the same. Academic qualifications, leadership experience at work and communities, very good. Okay, so most of you are on this. Let's go through this area quickly, okay? We're going to evaluate. Step two is evaluate your qualifications. And there are 4 basic areas that you're going to want to examine. One is academics, and most of you got that. Your grades and test scores are most common ways to show academic ability, but not the exclusive ways. Test scores seem to be declining in importance at many, many programs, but we'll discuss that a little bit later. Work experience. Let's have a work experience poll now. Okay, I have a question for you on that. And it is up now. What is more important? Quantity, quality, or both are important? What do you say? Again, the options are quantity of work experience, quality of work experience, or both are important. We're at 78% having voted. Can we get it up? Okay, we got it up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can close the poll and share the results. So 0% of you said quantity. Very good. 44% said quality and 56% said both are important. I am with the 56%, 100% with you. Both are important. If I had to choose between the two, I would say quality also. But I believe they're both important. Indeed, schools basically look for people with ideally 3 to 6 years of work experience, on the outside 2 to 8. That's kind of the sweet spot. Quality of work experience is a little bit harder to define, but basically it reflects responsibility that's been entrusted to you, your growth on the job, and your impact on the job, demonstrating managerial ability in a nutshell. Global, multicultural, multinational work experience is also really well valued. Now, what about the third pillar? It's not a requirement, though. Third pillar is personal qualities. What are they looking for? Well, the first thing that they're looking for is leadership, leadership, leadership. If it's location, location, location in real estate, it's leadership, leadership, leadership in MBA admissions. Schools also value teamwork, organizational, analytical, and communication skills, initiative, and an entrepreneurial mindset. Essentially, what they want to see is that you are a contributor, a giver, a person of impact and consequence. And then there's the fourth pillar, okay? Fit. Now, on some level, you can say, well, don't all three of the first ones show fit? And you'd be right. It's a valid question. But I separated this out, not because I needed the fourth pillar, things will stand with 3. I separated it out because I think it's something that's frequently overlooked. You want to show you identify with the school's values and will fit well into its culture and meet its qualifications and add to its community. On some level, the first 3 pillars are about fit, but I added this one, as I said a minute ago, because the school's mission and stated criteria, our values, are absolutely critical, and they are frequently overlooked or undervalued by applicants, since they're simply less quantitative and concrete. You can't put your finger on them quite as easily. Can any of these elements be improved or mitigated if you find that they fall short at your target schools? Yes, because you're starting early. Can you improve your profile to make yourself more competitive? Yes, and we're going to get that to an action step first. But first, in order to determine if you really need to improve or enhance these qualities or elements in the application, you need to research the schools and choose the schools you want to apply to. So at this point, we're going to have another poll. Which element below is least important when selecting an MBA program to apply to? And again, we're looking for the one that's least important. The options are career placement, curriculum, ranking, and extracurricular activities. Which of the following are least important? Career placement, curriculum, ranking, and extracurricular activities. Okay. I suspect this question is causing a little bit of confusion because we only have 63% having voted. Can we get it up? I won't bite if you guess wrong. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8% said career placement is least important. 54% said ranking is least important. And 38% said extracurricular activities. I agree with those who said ranking. So far, the majority has always been in agreement with me. We have a very wonderful audience today. I agree with that. I think that the most important element is career placement, and I would follow that closely by curriculum and extracurricular activities. And I would only weigh ranking, especially the overall rankings, as a last element. In other words, if you're accepted to multiple schools and you're indifferent between the two programs, then I would look at ranking, and I would choose the ranking that I feel is most reflects my priorities in business school. But otherwise, I might look more closely at specialty rankings actually than the general overall ranking, particularly if I had a very specific goal. All right, so let's examine how are you going to choose which schools are best suited to you? Well, the first thing you should do is determine what schools are best at helping you achieve your goals. And again, for that, I think you have to look first at recruiting and placement, at their employment reports. Also look at your education, consider your educational preferences. How do you learn best? Do you want a lecture program? Do you want a case-based program? Do you want a program that emphasizes experiential learning? Those are all things that you should consider and research when you're looking into schools. What about extracurricular activities and opportunities? Is a venture capital competition really important to you? Are treks to certain parts of the country or world important to you? Certain clubs, are they important to you, either just because of your personal interests or because of your career goals? And if they say they have those clubs on campus, are they active or are they only on the website? Now, how would you research this information? Again, I would check out specialty rankings. I do think that they have some value, but more important than the specialty rankings, I would look at the career services employment reports and see whether people are placed for the function you are most interested in and the industry you're most interested in. I was looking at some information about Vanderbilt, and I noticed that 18% of its graduates go into healthcare related and into the healthcare industry. So if I was interested in healthcare, especially if I, let's say, couldn't get into some of the higher ranked programs, I would very seriously consider Vanderbilt. It aligns with my goals. I'd also go thoroughly through any school's website. I'd follow blogs and social media for different schools. I would try and contact current students and recent alumni, especially those that I may identify with in terms of background, or those I might identify with in terms of goals. I'd also attend virtual events. Right now, we can't go in person, but hopefully that will change soon. And we'll be able to do either online tours and online events, or hopefully soon actually visit schools in person. And the point of this research should be to answer two key questions. Does the school support your goals? And are you competitive at these programs? I've been emphasizing goals since the first step of honing your goal, right? Now, again, in evaluating your qualifications, that was step 2. And step 3, you're comparing your qualifications to the profile, the class profile, and the profiles of students admitted to the schools you're most interested in. And you have to look at the second question also. You can't just look at the first question. If you only look at the first question, your application process may end up looking like this Venn diagram. What does this slide represent? In the chat window, please. Anybody in the chat window? Disjointed set, right? Empty set, right? Well, it represents rejection. If there's no intersection between the schools you want to attend and the schools likely to want you, you are likely to get rejected. However, if you have a diagram like that, where the schools you want to attend and the schools likely to want you overlap, then you're likely to be accepted. And if you chose your schools well, you're also likely to post MBA end up in the role that you want to end up in. So step number 4, once you've determined the schools you want to apply to, you're halfway there. But what if your schools you want to apply to look more like this than like this? Well, then you have to go through your pillars and see how you want to improve them, or you have to change the schools. So let's first talk about improving your profile so that you can apply to the schools you really want to apply to. Well, let's start with the academics, okay? Let's say your undergrad grades were below average for the schools you're aiming for. then you need to provide evidence you have the ability and the discipline to succeed. And I went through what you should be doing in a podcast, 5 A's for your low GPA at accept.com/137. I'm not going to go through the 30-minute podcast here now because we have a lot more material to cover, but I would strongly recommend that you listen to it. If your quant skills are weak, you're the proverbial poet, but your grades are good, consider taking something like MBAmath.com, HBS Online, massive open online courses to get those quant skills up to snuff, to prepare yourself to fly in business school, to do well. And also, you might want to consider, even if your school is not requiring a test or it has waivers, you might want to consider taking the GMAT or the GRE, provided you can do well on it and show that you really do have those quant skills. Now, if the schools you are applying to require a test, and you are struggling with it, you did not get the score you wanted, the best way to handle a low GMAT or GRE is frankly to retake and raise it. I know that's not popular, but that's reality. If you're not sure if you should retake or if you've taken the GMAT 3 or more times, please see either of these, these are two different resources, but they both address that question. One is a blog post and one is a full webinar I did on that point. Should you apply for a test waiver? Well, if you're not a good test taker and you have good grades in academics, yeah, sure, apply for your test waiver. The test won't help you. It'll take you a lot of time and money, and I don't think it's a good idea. I wouldn't recommend it. But if you don't have that strong undergrad transcript, you will probably need to take a test and get a competitive score, especially if you're applying to top 20 MBA programs. You're probably going to be in a situation where at least one will want the test. So this situation is in flux. It's changing. If none of your schools are requiring tests and you can provide evidence of academic ability, then skip the test, no question. But if a school requires a test where you can't provide that evidence of academic ability, then you might be better off taking the test. Now let's look at the second pillar, work experience. What if you are on the low end of work experience? You have too little work experience. Perhaps wait a year or aim for schools with lower average ages at matriculation. But the reality is that schools have turned away from admitting and matriculating MBA students straight from college, or really with less than 2 years of work experience. It is possible, but it's also difficult. You have a few options. One is consider a master's in management program like that offered by Duke or London Business School, Kellogg or Ross. You may also want to consider the deferred admissions programs that have really mushroomed over the last year or so. If you're currently in college, if you're a senior in college, and a few of the programs that have them, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, Kellogg, Chicago, Yale, MIT Sloan, Columbia, Darden, and Haas all offer these deferred admissions programs. And they like them. I don't think they're going to go away so quickly. Apply. And the third option is just wait a year or two, because this is one of those problems that will go away with time. What if you have too much work experience? You can aim for programs with higher ages at matriculation. European programs tend to be in that camp. You can also consider an executive MBA program, which typically is a part-time program, or a Sloan Fellows program, Stanford MSX program, the TRIUM program, if you meet the minimum experience requirements and are interested in a full-time immersive one-year program. If you really want to apply to the traditional 2-year full-time MBA programs and you have more than 8 years of work experience, be extra clear about why you want an MBA now at your level of work experience. And if at all possible, show that you're not relying on the school to find you a post-MBA job. You have the contacts to achieve your dreams, or perhaps are going to be returning to your company. Again, if you have an international component, or if you don't have an international component, while it's not required at most schools, it is sure nice to have. See if you can move into a project where you're on a multinational team. Again, I realize international travel is very, very difficult these days, if not impossible. Okay, personal qualities is the third pillar. And the most important one I mentioned is leadership. If you can take on responsibilities at work that will allow you to demonstrate leadership and the other qualities you see on the screen, I'd say go for it. And the other reality is, of course, that it's not always easy to do this at work because you're fairly junior in your career. It might be easier to assume a leadership role in a volunteer commitment. And that also allows you to show that you are contributing to your community, which is something schools like to see. And that leads to the whole community service thing. Um, if you are involved in a community service activity and you can perhaps take on increased responsibilities or a leadership role, that's a great idea. If you haven't been involved in anything since college, let's say, then I would say better late than never. Start now. Again, you have time. You can create a 6 month track record, which could turn into more if you end up applying round 2 or if you're waitlisted. And it's a real opportunity to demonstrate the desired personal qualities as well as a desire to contribute to your community. Realize also that we're all members of multiple communities. We have a geographic community, we might have a professional community, we might have an ethnic, a faith-based, political, sports, arts. These are all different communities that we belong to. And you don't have to take a leadership role in all of them, but perhaps you can choose one that you particularly want to contribute to. Now, until now, we've been talking about pre-application strategy and tactics more than implementation and the actual application. But I'd like to shift gears at this point and discuss 3 to-dos, 3 steps that will directly contribute to your application and your ability to show fit. So step number 5 is do a little preparation for your essays. I wouldn't start writing application essays yet, but I would create a file where you can jot down ideas for topics to include notes from your informational interviews and school research, and thoughts about the schools and possible essay topics. Obviously, you can use Google Docs, a spreadsheet, whatever you want. You can also use something like Evernote or Google Keep. Whatever works for you. You can also use index cards and paper, whatever works. But do take these notes because I think it will really help when it comes to writing the essays. Now, in terms of preparation for essays, what would be good topics to write down? What are experiences that you're most proud of? Take a few notes. What was a challenge you faced? What did you actually do? What was the impact of your actions? What is the achievement? What character traits did you reveal through your actions? Once the applications are out, you can start working on the essays. But for now, I would nail other stuff. And I really believe that the notes you take that I've just outlined for you will really help you in June or July if you're aiming for round 1 deadlines, because that's when you're going to need to start writing the essays. Now, in terms of what you can nail now, you can nail your resume. This is something you should polish off now. If you can, keep it to 1 page, maximum 2 pages if your school allows it. Most of you should be able to, because you're fairly junior in your career, get it onto 1 page. When you're working on your resume, focus on achievements and outcomes, not just the descriptions of your responsibilities. Quantify whenever possible. And please, please, please don't waste space and bullet points basically saying what your job title implies. What do I mean by that? If you're a financial analyst, don't just say, I create financial models. Well, that's kind of what financial analysts do. What you could say is, I created the model that convinced my company to invest in this and this product, company, market that returned blah, blah, blah. Okay, that would be a very valuable bullet. Do you hear the difference? Raise your hand if you hear the difference. Okay, all right, good, good. And now for the last step, decide on and talk to your recommenders. Now, your recommenders should be people who have supervised you directly and really know what you're capable of based on personal experience. Ask them if they're willing to write a strong, supportive letter of recommendation for you. Tell them you'll give them material that they can use, and that material for your information should be your resume, a brief summary of accomplishments in case they forget something, and access to the recommendation form that they're going to have to respond to, and a 1-paragraph summary of what the school is looking for. No lengthy books, please. 1-paragraph summary. as well as about 4 weeks notice. Give them a time frame. Now you can just give them a time frame. You don't want to find out that they'll be away the entire, month before the application is due, unless they want to do it the month before that. But give them a time frame, and that way maybe they could tell you, "I'd love to write it for you, but I can't write it then. I can write it the month before then." Fine. I think I don't think you need to ask now, March 3rd, but I would ask, let's say May or June, when you even have more achievements under your belt. Okay, so we've gone through the 7 steps. At this point, I promised you a contest and an opportunity to win a free 15-minute consultation with me. The first 3 people to get the right answer to this question can have that free consultation. Please post your responses in the chat window. The question is, what is the first step of the 7 steps? Okay, Travis, you got it. Hunter, you got it. And Anouk, you got it. Okay, very good. Great audience. Thank you. Begin with the end in mind, clarify or hone your post-MBA goal. Now let's review all 7 steps. Okay, there's 1, 2, evaluate your qualifications, test score, GPA, work experience, community service, leadership, to see if anything needs work. Number 3, research the schools to determine which best support your goals. Number 4, improve those areas that need improving. Number 5, a little light essay prep. Number 6, work on your resume and nail it, finish it. Decide on and ask your recommenders if they will help you. Now, some of you are going to look at this list or your table in the worksheet, and you're going to wisely decide to apply round 2, or perhaps even wait a year. Others will only have a few action items to do because you've already started on many of these tasks. Congratulations. But you all should have something to do. And whatever you do now will improve your chances of acceptance and make your life a lot saner and less stressful come application time. And right now, I'd like you to write down at least one action item, or highlight it, or put a deadline for it. One action item you're going to start on this week for the next 7 days based on today's masterclass, and set yourself a deadline for completion. If you already wrote it down, you don't have to do it again. But if you haven't done it, do it now. Write down a task with at least a start date, if not a completion date of this week. And at this point, I have a question for you folks before we get to the rest of the webinar and the Q&A. I'd like to know, what's the most valuable piece of advice, concept, or insight so far in the webinar? Thanks, Carly. What's been most valuable to you so far in this webinar? Anybody want to share? Prepare early. Oh, great. Tips for recommenders. Okay. Details of qualities and steps for recommendation. Okay. Outline of school research. Thanks. Thank you, Travis, Hunter, Isabella, Guillerme. But again, I apologize for mispronouncing names. Anybody else want to share what they found most valuable? Clear goals. Thank you, Kush. Tips on how to compensate a low GPA. Wonderful, Mariam. Again, accepted.com/137. The detailed flow of steps makes the plan look tangible. Thank you, Vaibhavi. That's great. All right. Thank you very much for your feedback. Now, one step is fine. Even having the 7 steps laid out on the screen is fine. But do you have a plan that not only to prepare yourself to apply, but to actually complete the application? How are you going to show fit with your target schools? And then for the paradox of MBA admissions, which we really haven't discussed. Remember those 3 seats from the very beginning of the webinar? This is a third one. Once you show fit, how are you also going to show that you stand out in the applicant pool? Because that is what you have to do when you apply. You have to show that you're an individual who will contribute to your class, your school's community, and ultimately make a difference in the world. That's the third seed I mentioned way back at the beginning. The stress-inducing paradox of MBA admissions is that you have to show that you both fit in at your target programs and at the same time are a unique individual, a standout in the applicant pool. And it's not easy. We understand that. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed now, you have lots of company in the applicant pool. That's one way you don't, again, you're very much the same. We here at Accepted really understand how tough it is. Many of us have MBAs, as I do, and we have been advising successful MBA applicants since 1994. You're now at a crossroads on your professional journey. As you start your pursuit of the MBA, you can either take a do-it-yourself approach or a professional approach. Given that we're talking about a six-figure investment in graduate management education, your career, lifelong earnings, and job satisfaction, I highly recommend the professional approach and engagement with an accepted consultant. We'd like to help you apply confidently and successfully. While you want to do this exactly once, or once more if you're a reapplicant, we've been helping MBA applicants get accepted for 27 years. We'd love to help you not only get accepted, but get into a program that launches you on your dream career trajectory. Put simply, it pays to have an experienced professional guiding you at this critical juncture on your professional and educational journey. Here's what you can do when you have accepted on your side. You can access expertise and experience, reduce your stress, save time, optimize school choice and your application, and mitigate weaknesses. And you get candor, a mentor, and objectivity combined with expertise and decades of experience in MBA admissions. Now, some of you may say, Accepted is expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service, but because of the quality of our staff. However, there are also expensive risks associated with not using Accepted. Reapplication can easily cost a few $1,000s with test prep and interview travel, because I think that will resume ultimately. You can have one additional year of pre-MBA earnings, and that can cost you in the five figures in dollars. And there's a potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and network. And that could cost you in the 5 or 6 figures. Now, every year we work with applicants who talked to us a year earlier and decided after taking the do-it-yourself approach and getting rejected to work with us. They would have been better off working with us initially, and so would you. But enough from me. What do Accepted's clients say? Let me give you a couple of examples of how we have helped our clients. We made it, finally submitted both applications on time. Thank you so much for your amazing effort and support on both applications. I will definitely keep you posted on my status on all 3 applications. I would also like to allocate the remaining time for my interview training, assuming I get invited for one. I feel exhausted but cannot sleep because of the excitement. Again, thank you. This fellow had a low GMAT, and as you see on the screen, was later accepted to Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton. Or this client, who had worked with Jamie Wright. I was admitted, I cannot thank you enough, accepted to London Business School. And the one on the bottom was from an Indian male consultant who got rejected the first time around and started working with accepted consultant Jennifer Bloom very early in the process the second time around. In his words, yesterday I got the good news and it was from Harvard. I'm absolutely thrilled. Amidst the euphoria, I want to take out a moment to thank Accepted, Jennifer in particular, for all the help and in many ways it went beyond admissions consulting. Imagine yourself in the shoes of these clients I just quoted, accepted to your dream school, getting ready for the experience of a lifetime and the career you've dreamed of. We want to support you on this journey, as we did the clients you just heard from. But are doubts and questions about your qualifications and how to proceed leading to analysis paralysis, obsessive Forbes stalking? The fact that you're here tells me you're not like those who want to take the do-it-yourself approach or wait until the last minute. You're different. You want to actually apply to the right programs, present yourself effectively, and get accepted to the MBA program that will help you achieve your goals, aspirations, and dreams. To do so, here's what I'd like you to do. Go to accepted.com/MBA/services/consulting, add to cart, and get the experienced objective perspective that can turbocharge your MBA application. We're here to guide you and help you get accepted to the best MBA program for you. And as you see on the screen, you can beat the March 15th price increase if you purchase now. In the context of the MBA, the investment in an hour or two advice at this point in time from an experienced and seasoned MBA admissions consultant can pay off in spades in acceptance a year earlier and or at a better school and possibly scholarship dollars. And now I'm happy to take your questions. I see we have quite a few in the question window. So please feel free. Again, we do have several, but feel free to post more if you have them. And I'm going to turn on my video camera so you can see my smiling face. Well, I don't see my smiling face, which is kind of interesting, but okay, we'll make it work. Let's see. Okay. Varun asks, could you outline the elements of leadership at work so it is more tangible for us? Is it formally leading teams, having reportees? It can, leadership is assuming responsibility for an outcome, fundamentally. And usually it requires other people being involved. So it's great if it means a manager title or team lead or something like that. But it's not just that. And some of you are probably in fairly flat organizations. So it can be leading a project without a title. It can be persuading people, perhaps even senior to you, to follow a certain course of action. Don't think of leadership in its narrowest form, which is authority, usually associated with title. It can be that, to be sure, but it also can be the ability to lead without title. Does that help you, Varun? Does that help you, anybody? Okay, great. Guilherme asks, what schools full-time 2 year do you recommend for someone who has too much experience, 11 years? Do you have any advice for reapplicants? Should I change all the essays? All right. Well, in terms of your first question, I would strongly encourage you to look into the Sloan Fellows Program at MIT Sloan and London Business School, or the Stanford MSX program at Stanford, or the TRIUM program, which is a 3-school program, and I think it's LBS, HEC, and Wharton. Those are all programs that are aimed at older applicants, and they are full-time. They are not 2 years, but they are aimed at people at your level of experience. We've had several clients accepted to them. They have been thrilled with the programs. And there are certain advantage to you of being in a cohort with people of similar experience levels. In terms of the too much experience and the traditional 2 year full-time program, quite frankly, I think I need to talk to you. And I probably would refer you to a particular consultant who's worked with several of our older applicants. And I'd have to know why you want specifically the 2 year program, what your goals are, et cetera. You need to be extremely realistic. And Carly, could I ask you to post the article for older MBA applicants for Guilherme? Okay. All right. So, and the second question is, do you have any advice for reapplicants? Should I change all the essays? Well, without seeing your application, it's pretty hard to give you any specific advice. The first thing you have to do is analyze what went wrong. Were you not competitive at your target schools? Then you either have to improve your qualifications or change your target schools. Did you fail to present your qualifications effectively? Then you need to change your presentation. I certainly would never recommend that you submit the exact same essays that you submitted last time, because you want to show growth and change in any reapplication. But beyond that, I really can't say much without actually reviewing the application. We do have, and again, Carly, I'm going to ask you to post the link, a rejection review service where a consultant will go through your application, discuss what she feels needs to be improved, he needs to be improved, how to improve it, and discuss steps forward with you. Okay, you can get the details and the price from the link that Carly's about to post. Good question, so thank you. Bebavi asks, I have less than 1 year work experience and I'm aiming for a traditional 2 year MBA in the US, UK. What is the ideal amount of waiting time before applying? Again, knowing nothing about you, I would wait at least another year to apply, because that way you'll have 3 years at matriculation. Okay, you want to have, in order to have a decent chance, and also employers prefer it. So, again, knowing nothing other than what you wrote here, I would not apply this upcoming cycle. I would wait till fall 2022 to apply, with the hope of matriculating in 2023. Okay. The third question, round 3 for are you, Guilherme, are you in the United States or are you abroad? I think you said you were in Brazil. And Carly just posted both the article for you and the rejection review service. You're in Brazil. How hard is it? Is it hard to get a visa from Brazil? Okay. I'd have to know a lot more about you. It's kind of borderline. This has also been a particularly tough application cycle. Application volume has been up. I need to know more. I don't remember if you were one of the winners or not. If not, if you were, then we'll discuss it then. Would the age of 34 be too old to apply? The 3M schools? What 3M schools did I mention? Oh, the Sloan Fellows programs. It was Sloan Fellows MIT, Sloan Fellows London Business School, and the Stanford MSX program. There's also a program called the TRIUM, TRIUM program, which I believe is HEC, London Business School, and Wharton, but I'm not positive on that moment. Okay. Khaled asked, would the age of 34 be too old to apply? Probably not. Or you could try one of the programs I just mentioned, the Stanford MSX, the Sloan Fellows, Stanford MSX programs. It's probably not too old, but it's getting up there. I think I'd need to know more about your experience, your reasons for applying now, and what your post-MBA goal is to answer that more intelligently. I think you did win though, so we'll talk. All right. What package would be best for someone looking to get a pre-evaluation, bounce ideas about my story and my resume? Thank you for the question, Sahad. I think the best thing for you would be to sign up for 1 hour. And Carly, can you post, actually that is the link on the screen, accept.com/MBA/services/consulting. That would be the minimum. If you see yourself wanting to come back for additional services, then you might want to consider more time, or perhaps an application package. But if all you want is to bounce some ideas, get a pre-evaluation, etc., then the URL on the screen is the one for you. Again, thank you for the question. Anonymous attendee asks, I have 4 years of part-time experience and 2 years full-time experience. How should I write my application? Is 6 years of experience or 2? Well, part of it will depend on the question that's being posed. But if the question is about 2 years, about how much full-time work experience you have, then you need to say 2 years. And it's usually about full-time work experience. Varun asks, how can an applicant from an overrepresented group stand out? That is a great question. You can stand out by telling your story really, really well, having a goal that aligns very clearly with the schools that you're applying to. You can stand out with a very high level of achievement. Usually the specifics of your story will help you stand out. If you focus on the commonalities that you have with many other applicants, you'll blend in. What I do at many, I didn't fit for this masterclass, but what I do at many others is I do a little exercise where I'll ask some general questions and everybody says, yes, that's me, that's me, that's me. And then I'll ask some very specific questions, and suddenly only a few people can identify with that question. And I'll say, what's the difference? Oh, specifics. You differentiate yourself via specifics. Okay, and that's about all I can say. I think we also have some posts on that. We have specifically a guide for Indian MBA applicants, which is probably the most overrepresented group. Can you post that, Carly? And it talks about how to stand out. Another anonymous attendee is asking, is it okay to obtain an LOR from my current boss? I know that would be a conflict of interest because I wouldn't be returning to the workplace. From the business school's perspective, they love it when you get a letter of recommendation from your current boss. That's exactly what they want. In terms of the conflict of interest, you kind of have to know your boss. We had a client a few years ago who went to his boss and promptly was removed from, and been told he'd be on a certain project in the future and wasn't put on that project because the boss knew he was leaving. So you have to, again, know your boss and your position and how helpful your boss will be. And Bobby asks, follow-up question with an engineering undergrad 7.5 from a reputed Indian college, GMAT score of 770, work experience at Novartis as a business analyst. What are my chances of full scholarships and at which schools? If not, where can I improve? I need to know more to really answer that question. Certainly your GMAT score is stellar and it will help to get you that scholarship. But I need to know if you were, progressing at Novartis, how much, were you a star at Novartis, if you will. That would definitely help. What are your goals post MBA? What programs are you interested in? And, go from there. Isabella asked, does someone coming from HR have a smaller chance of getting into an MBA program? It depends. I think it depends again on what you want to do, how your grades are. It's very hard to look at just one element of the application and give an assessment. I really can't say that, because if you have a great GMAT score, great grades, again, assuming the schools you're applying to want to see the GMAT, you have a goal that requires an MBA, you should do just fine. Impact on the job, impact off the job, that all counts. Another question from Isabella, how does COVID impact applications acceptance rates? What can I do to stand out? Okay. COVID has increased, it caused a recession. And like most recessions, it led to a surge in applications to business schools. So application volume increased at the very end of last application cycle, and preliminary reports are that application volume is definitely up at top MBA programs around the world. In terms of what you can do to stand out, again, I think I need to know a little bit about you, and I partially answered that a minute ago. You're going to focus on your achievements, the distinctive elements of your profile by talking about specifics. You're going to attempt to show fit, really good fit between your goals and the school's strengths, have logical reasons, purposeful reasons for wanting to go to these schools other than, oh, you're in the top 10. Those are going to be the things that make your application stand out. We also have a guide, I think, that we can post. We have lots of posts on standing out. I've interviewed many consultants, and Carly, maybe you can post the ultimate guide, I think, to MBA applications. That might be helpful for the people wanting to know how to stand out. But thank you for your question. Good question. Rosa asks, would you suggest to switch industry, for example, 5 years of experience in finance to consulting before applying, if consulting is what I'd like to do after MBA? If you can make the switch, yes. Yeah, you have the great finance experience. If you also get, spend the next year in consulting, and then you say you want to do consulting afterwards, that experience is going to be helpful to you. I don't know that's mandatory, but it certainly would be helpful. Jeff asks, what are your thoughts on taking MBA adjacent coursework such as Stanford's Management Science and Engineering Department? I mean, I think it depends a little bit on your profile. If you don't have a lot of business classes in your transcript or in your work experience, or maybe again, your grades were a little bit low, sure, I think that would be very helpful. But if you have all the coursework and you're in a very businessy, if you will, work, then, and you have good grades, I'm not sure it's going to make much of a difference at all. Lash asked, what does overrepresented group mean? Would this be classified from which country you come from, or would it be ethnic group regardless from your country or origin? It can also be a professional group. It's not just, it's overrepresented mean that there's a lot of people like you, whether it's engineers or people of a specific nationality or ethnicity or gender, they are disproportionately represented in the applicant pool. That's what overrepresented means. I did not hear from some schools I applied to round 2 yet. Deadlines between 17th and 25th of March. Am I out of the process? If you haven't gotten an interview invitation, I wouldn't be optimistic, but you still could. So it's pretty hard to say. Okay. And so Sahad, just to clarify, I see in the chat window that there's some questions. Sahad, the rejection review is a review of an application that's been rejected, along with suggestions for improvement. What I understood from your question was that you have not yet applied. You want to bounce ideas off a consultant and kind of get a little bit of direction at this point in time. And for that, I would recommend purchasing an hour of consulting, maybe 2 hours, but an hour should suffice. Okay. And at this point, I want to thank you for your attending, your participation. You've been a great audience. Your questions, your answers, your time, your attention. I have one final story and one final thought and another question for you. The thought. I've emphasized the value of starting early. I'm going to emphasize it again. Get started. There's a lot to do to have an excellent MBA application. It's a stressful process. If you start early, you'll reduce your stress. I've given you 7 steps. Some of you may have only 1 or 2. That's great, but get started. Work steadily and submit your best. You'll thank me come deadlines and decision time. The story. A couple of years ago, I got a call from John. He had an excellent GMAT, a prestigious job on Wall Street, slightly below average GPA, but not horrible, in a really tough major from a public Ivy. He was aiming for top business school. And this competitive, accomplished applicant spoke to one of our consultants and to me about accepted services. And then he decided to take the do-it-yourself route. The following year, he called me again. He'd not gotten in anywhere. He'd gotten close, 3 wait lists, but in the end, he didn't make the cut. And this time, he wanted to work with a consultant whom he had spoken with the year earlier, Natalie Greenblatt Epstein. Perhaps the first time around, he was too cocky. Perhaps he was too nervous. Perhaps he didn't present himself effectively, either via the written application or his interviews. Whatever it was, he didn't get in that first time. Here is what he wrote about his experience with working with Natalie the second time around. After reviewing my previous submission and talking multiple times, she identified numerous ways that I could enhance my application. As part of helping me craft an application that highlighted my attributes, we redesigned the layout of my resume and optimized my essay topics to present me in the most well-rounded way. If you expect the best from yourself, then Natalie will help you achieve it. The results speak for themselves, as I will be attending MIT Sloan. Now, after Harvard and Stanford, MIT Sloan has the lowest acceptance rate of any US MBA program. Now, John got the guidance he needed to avoid the pitfalls that had felled his previous applications. Working with Accepted, he also brought out his strengths and distinctive qualities and ultimately showed that he belongs at a top MBA program. He got into a top school with Accepted's help, and so can you. Get accepted. Now, the question. You've stayed for the masterclass, the pitch, the Q&A. You certainly seem to be interested in what I have to say. And I'm curious, if you're not already a client or planning to become a client, would you be willing to share your reasons for not engaging one-on-one with Accepted? And again, chat window, or this one you can do in the chat window or the question window. I don't have a strong preference. Actually, get the question window up again because I close it. Okay, I'm not confident enough to apply. Resume, GPA, work experience. All right. It might pay for you to purchase 1 hour of consulting. Then you can get advice on how to improve those elements, how to address those concerns, and prepare to apply in the following year. Whether it's, I know you mentioned that, I think you said you're 34, whether it's to an executive MBA program, one of the Sloan Fellows programs, or a traditional MBA program. That's something that you can talk about, with your consultant. And again, that's a $330 investment. Um, it can pay off in terms of either avoiding an application that's doomed to failure, because application fees, test fees will far exceed the $330, or in terms of you getting into a great program. So, and then all the benefits that program will bring to you. So just think about that as you weigh up whether you want to invest in an hour consultation. Vaibhavi wrote, the only challenge is budget. Indian rupee to US dollar conversions are crazy. Yeah, I know the budget is tough. We do work with Indian applicants every year, many Indian applicants. We have a consultant in both Israel, Germany, and London. And they all work, probably most of their clients rather, are from India. So if you have the money to apply, do you have the money to spend on applications that are unsuccessful, where perhaps, again, an hour or 2 hour consultation would be really valuable and help you make those investments in application fees and test prep worth it? Okay. Realize also that our consultants are most of them are either highly experienced consultants and or former admissions directors. So yes, the expense is there, and I need to pay highly qualified people salaries that they can command. Okay, so but I do understand that budget is an issue. You may also be better off with our hourly plans. In general, if you want to save money more than time, you have confidence in your writing abilities and where you want to take your essays, you're better off with our hourly plans. If you want to save time more than money, you lack confidence in where you're going to go with the applications, and you lack confidence in your writing abilities, you're better off with our package plans. They'll be more cost effective for you. So Jeff asked, reason for not more actively pursuing continued success at work has made an MBA not a need to have. Okay, that makes sense. There definitely are people who have gotten to a certain place where they don't need an MBA. They don't want to invest in the MBA. That makes a certain amount of sense. But if you are in that camp, first of all, congratulations. That sounds great. But I'm kind of curious why you even came. Clearly, you're thinking of applying to the MBA, and the better school that you get into, the more likely it is to pay off. So, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Would you be willing to? And anybody else want to share why they're hesitating to engage with Accepted? I do also want to point out, for those of you who are concerned about the cost, especially if you are in the US, that we have a firm on the website, and that allows you to pay over 36 months. They do charge interest. We don't benefit from it. We actually pay more for a firm than for other payment options, but it is an option out there. Okay. In that case, anybody else want to respond? If not, I'm going to thank you very, very much for your time, your attention. All right. Let's see what Jeff responded here. An MBA sounds like an incredible experience, and it's always at the back of my mind. Thank you for hosting these events to help me reevaluate what my goals are going forward and to get the juices flowing. Okay, great. And if you choose to engage with us in the future, if you choose to apply and you want that advice, obviously we're here. Again, thank you all very much for coming, for your questions, your answers, your time, your attention. I really appreciate it. Good luck with your applications if you choose to apply.